And so the business economics just didn't work for us. It just wasn't enough profit in it to do it. It's a very low-margin business.
Sure.
So.
Great. Thank you, Catherine, very much.
Catherine, we're going to shift over and talk about future events, if that's okay with you. In your previous interviews, podcasts, and on your blog, you communicate about relocalization or relocalizing as one of the best solutions ordinary people can take in their daily activities to counter the effects of the neo-corporatists, Mr. Big, Mr. Global, if you will, and general big business dominance of the economy. Are you seeing much of this in your travels? Is there community building going on as you've been about, or is Wally World still where most people are finding their solution to decreasing purchasing power of their money due to the household budget constraints?
I think the results are very mixed because I do think, all political power is place-based, or pretty much place-based, and certainly in the United States, Mr. Global kind of has a lockdown county by county. That's how he built a lot of his power is bottom up. So you have a lot of lockdown, but I do think that what I've seen is you have a lot more interest in what's going on locally. You have a lot more effective action being taken, and where you get enough of a critical mass, you really get some things done. So I think that local organization, local action can make enormous difference to quality of life on the ground. And the question is, where can you get a critical mass of people, particularly who understand what's going on? Because if they don't understand what's going on, then they can easily get tricked. And what I've seen is a lot of good things get started, but a lot of people get tricked. So I would say it's kind of, it's mixed results so far. But the reality is, the global economy, think of the global economy as the body, and the household and community economy is really the molecule. And for the body to be healthy, the molecules have to be healthy. So, the way you build a body is one molecule at a time. So we need to be about both. But the building block is certainly the household and the community. And it's interesting, if you look at many of the people who are interested in building community, what they often don't understand is the thing that makes a successful community are successful families. I've never been in a community anywhere in the world where the success of local economy didn't come down to a series of families who built enterprise and built people and built civic participation and contributed lots of time and money to sort of building the commons. And so if we want to build successful community, we're going to have to be in the business of helping families succeed. And right now, most of the families I know, literally globally, are struggling with so much. It's one thing to build and operate a great business in a community. It's another thing to do when somebody is playing games with your taxes and spraying chemtrails on your head and debasing your currency.
Definitely, yeah. Makes things much tougher when the community isn't there to support the family and the individual, and without community there and without the families in the community, you don't have that mutual support network.
Right. Now, if you come, I live in the South in the United States. If you come into most small towns in America, there are essentially three power bases. You have the courthouse, you have the bank, and you have the church. And the church is a complex, there are lots of different kinds of churches, but you still have within the church some organizations which are committed to helping people succeed, and much more so than necessarily the bank and the courthouse. So, there are still pockets within communities. What's amazing is I did a celery report with Dr. Gwen Scott, who's a naturopath, who's an expert on how to reverse the the sort of the negative impacts of chemtrails on your health. And she said, we had 10 actions you can take to protect yourself from chemtrails. And she said the number one action you can take is to appreciate the miracle, because if you look at all the things that have been sprayed on our heads, we should all be dead. And the fact that we're not says that something is really going on.
Yeah.
Right. So what is that something? And what's amazing to me is I'm amazed throughout America the communities still work. And the reason they work is the vast majority of people get up and do everything in their power all day long to try and make them work. And what's amazing is how they've managed to do that despite the headwinds and the trials and tribulations and problems. It's quite remarkable. But there is this thing called grace in the universe that is really operating, because we should all be dead, but we're not.
Very glad that we're not. And certainly grace must have some role to play given everything that's been thrown at us. I have kind of a separate question for you from Suzanne Toro. If you know of resources, and part of making things work in community is to establish those local financial systems that you've talked about, where Joan and Ann can go and sit with their local banker who doesn't want to write a loan for Mr. Smith, but Joan and Ann are willing to lend the money if the banker will play the middleman. Are there systems that you are aware of that can help local communities to set up their financial systems so that the local communities can unplug from the beast and work direct with other communities, members in their communities, and cross communities within larger regions?
We're going to have to do it through personal networks. So one of the reasons I've encouraged people to do Solari Circles is, they're small, they're informal, and it's almost a knowledge management tool. But that way, if everybody can organize into very small groups of people they trust, then you don't have to trust everybody else to do an occasional deal with them. And that's the building block of starting to do financial transactions. But we need little cells of people who trust each other, who are then organized to transact with other cells. Now that has never come together, and one of the reasons is most people think they can continue to use the, sort of the banking platform. Now, I don't know a way of organizing it other than through personal networks of trust.
Okay.
And, most people feel, one, that they can't trust other people to be honorable in financial transactions, and two, that if they pull their money out of the mainstream system, that will somehow make them a target.
Do you think possibly that more actively promoting the local credit union is a first step in transitioning away from the Wall Street model to a more
Absolutely.
traditional local model before then making that final step even further if that's the way things need to go?
Absolutely. So getting into a local bank and getting to know the local financial people who you can really trust is absolutely the first step. And then the second step is saying, well, where can I put my money that gives me true diversification so it's not all sitting in a brokerage account? So, for example, one of the things you'll see, I have family members who said, well, I want true diversification, so I'm going to do the local, not only do I bank at the local credit union or bank, but I'm going to put money in the local community loan fund. And that's true diversification outside of the sort of traditional brokerage system.
Sure.
The other thing is, for people who've been successful, whose investments have done well over the last, I have a book called Gifting to the Children We Love, and there is so much that families can do within families to help each other with gifting or money. There's a wonderful book, and I interviewed the author on the Solari Report. It's called Building Family Wealth with Jay Hughes. Let me get the exact title. And there's a lot that families do to organize and manage wealth. And it's not just what a family can do. It's or a wealthy family can do. It's called Family Wealth, Keeping It in the Family. And if you go to the Larry blog, just do a search for Family Wealth, you'll pick it up. He talks a lot about what are the behaviors and habits that cause a family to be financially successful together. And, of course, you see it when the immigrant groups come into the United States. They're fantastic about, sort of organizing and managing economic conspiracy together as a family, and they build tremendous wealth and equity over time by doing that. So a lot of this comes down to good habits and behaviors where families get smart about money and make each other smart about money and then go to work to build, whether it's enterprises or investments or whatever. There's a lot of that we don't do. We've all been trained to just put our money in the big bank or the big brokerage system and strip our families. And so I talked before about the different generations getting together. Yeah. Part of what needs to happen is the different generations need to get together in a family and literally say, okay, we need to conspire. Mr. Global is out there trying to debase us and steal our money. How can we conspire together to make sure Mr. Global can? And not only that, we reverse it, because true decentralization means Mr. Global gets drained and millions of families on the ground build new wealth.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I like how in what you've been talking about, it shifts away from a debt model to an equity model. A question that I always had about that was, if you've got a multi-generational approach and there is equity investment inside the community, if there is some need for liquidity, how do you get the equity out of these investments, long-term diversification investments that you've put together?
Right, and that's always been the argument for creating a community venture fund.
Thank you.
If you could create a community venture fund that's publicly traded, then the investments in the individual companies can stay illiquid and professionally managed. But everybody in the community could publicly trade the stock and put it in their 401k or IRA. If it could be made eligible as long as it could be made eligible even if it's not liquid, but it's better if it's liquid.
Yes.
So there is a way to do it, and in fact, that was one of the things. There were several things I was doing in the 90s that caused me so much political trouble. One was we were building software that would let everybody see all the sources and uses of government money by place in their neighborhood. So all the shenanigans would stop because everybody could see what the shenanigans were. But the second was we were doing community venture funds and literally making a software tool called Community IPO in a box. So, with a bunch of radio dots, you could literally spit out a prospectus that would structure a community venture fund to do just that kind of thing. And then, of course, we were helping to do the HUD loan sales in a way that was shifting, kind of power shifting on the ground, who controlled real estate within a place. So, but the venture fund was hugely threatening to Mr. Global because if you want everything to run through your corporate stocks, I go back to Whole Foods. If Whole Foods is trading at a multiple of 34 times, then Whole Foods investors can make a whole lot of money if the Rawsome Food Club in Venice Beach, California gets shut down, because suddenly all those people have to go to Whole Foods, and every dollar of new sales, because it's variable, a lot of that falls to your bottom line. Your stock's trading at 34 times the biggest investor has got a 10% position, and suddenly, it makes a difference to shut down lots of food clubs in terms of what it can do for the stock.
Yeah.
So the community venture funds were not appreciated by the guys who are looking to take over communities with franchises.